Here we have Marilyn, and you know she's one of my favorite in the whole industry. I love Marilyn's work. Marilyn, what is it you're doing for us today?
Well, today is going to be very interesting. We've got a trip through the quantum in terms of some of the remote experiments that I've been doing, the results of those experiments, and also showing people the equipment and the kit that I've been using. Because for me to just say frequency generator or scalar energy generator, people often don't know what that means. And so I have got a presentation that I'll have up so I can actually show people what I'm talking about as I explain those concepts as the future of frequency medicine, which really started in the past, but exciting to see how it's going to be in the present and in the future. So, all right, let's rock and roll. I'm going to pull that up and hopefully you can see my screen and start from the beginning. There we go. Right, so you should be able to see my screen and hopefully they will be advancing and moving. Now, what I'm going to say, first of all, this is going to be a fast and furious ride. The plus of that, however, is everything's being recorded. So you can go back, hit the pause button, do what you need to do, and revisit some of the information. So, quick overview in terms of what we're looking at. Quantum entanglement, Rife frequencies, and scalar energy. So, we're going to do a whistle stop tour of that. I'm going to show you and tell you about the results of what I called my quantum entanglement remote experiment. We're going to do an FLP Visionary Minds guided process. My suggestion is we're kind of tapping into the zeitgeist and the best aspects of Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla. Got a bit of a bonus for those of you who are here live if you want to take part in a radionics manifestation protocol. We've got some tips for manifesting synchronicity and self-growth, just some things that you can do in your daily life. And if we have time, I put it in italics because we probably won't do it. The reason being, I then remembered that we're doing this on Zoom. Zoom has noise cancelling built into the system. So when I'm sort of going, and doing all the Huna stuff, oftentimes on Zoom, people can just see me waving my hands about, but they can't actually hear it. It's not that you can't still feel it vibrationally, but I might just run a separate audio feed and do something afterwards and find a way for people to download it. So, Anne, before I get going, are my slides moving and are we now on session overview?
We're on session overview.
Perfect, Amundo. So we also have a bit of a bonus again for those of you who are here live. What I thought it might be fun to do is after this presentation, do a group radionics piece where you can kind of bask in the scalar energy, we can play with the harmonic frequencies, and that's going to require your permission to go into the scalar energy field. So I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. So in terms of very quickly, the origins of the remote experiment, how it came about. I had some stuff going on with my health when we hit into February 2022, a story for another day. But I'm doing the Huna. That's the thing that's keeping me functioning and being out in the world. And I found myself thinking, I also want to look more deeply at the cellular level. What is happening inside of the body with the cells, with the blood, with the muscles, with the joints, with the tendons, and how do we reach that even more deeply? So I started looking, first of all, at personal use, what they call quantum scalar wave cold lasers. They're little things that you hold them in your hand and that's what they look like, and you just kind of place them on the body, and they say they're cold lasers because they don't actually heat up. So I started using those. Amazing, made a massive difference. Then I started blending that with my Huna sessions. I'm like, woo, this is so cool. And then I revisited something that I'd looked at years ago, what we call the Hertz frequency. So if you've heard of things like the solfeggio frequencies, I love listening to stuff. I'm a mad fan of paraliminal technology, have been since my photo reading days. So I've always been interested in that, well, at least for the last 24 years. And so I started looking at the frequencies that impact the body and the cells and the various organs. And then I did what I often do when I create courses, programs, workshops, training. I was like, ooh, I wonder what would happen if I started using this, not just for myself, but for other clients. And if I take the principles that I use with Huna when I do my remote Huna sessions, I wonder if I could work with people remotely. So that's kind of how it started. And as I was looking at the way that this kit works, I was like, what would happen if you could actually change just by going, yeah, let's do it. And then that's it. You don't really have to do anything else. I was doing all the heavy lifting, but people would be like, yeah, I'm in. And then that was it. I was like, that will be so freaking cool. So that's kind of how it started. So all of the results, I will not have time to talk. I'm going to pull out a couple of examples. We're going to do a whistle stop tour of, what happened in summary, because I went to my e-newsletter list and said, I want some people who are up for doing a remote experiment. I didn't even really tell them what I was going to do. They're like, I'm in. Um, and so there's a blog, bit.ly/remote dash quantum dash results. You're not going there now because you're going to listen to this and then you're going to stay for Jake. But later on, maybe, later on over the weekend, etc., have a read of the blog because it's written in people's own words. The only thing I did was remove their names and I made some tweaks and changes if they spoke in a way where you could identify them. This is what happened in a nutshell. 6 people took part. So we've got the before and after. So one person said, oh, I've got really low energy. I'm feeling demotivated, don't really want to move, get up. For them, they said they felt motivated to move, to exercise, just to be back in the world. Someone else was suffering from high blood pressure, stress, sleep issues. They then said they're feeling more motivated, their intuition is sharper. They were sleeping through the night versus waking up every 2 hours. They were now sleeping for a good 5 hours, which was a massive difference because waking up every 2 hours is very disruptive to the sleep. They also had some stuff going on with their bladder due to the medication they were taking. And I think it was the third day, the Wednesday, that because the experiment was 7 days, they went into London and didn't need to hunt around for a public bathroom. So really major changes for them in terms of the impact on their life. There was somebody who had kidney problems, really tired. They then reported on the first night and thereafter best night's sleep, and they said they were feeling cleaner and more flowy. And cleaner, I think, is a really nice way to put it when you're working with the kidneys, because your kidneys are part of the things that's helping to cleanse the body. This one was they're all so cool, but I was like, what in earth? Somebody had osteoporosis and hip pain. That's all they said in the email, nothing else. That's all they sent me, those 4 words. Within 4 days, they had less pronounced pain, less of a pronounced limp, were walking upstairs without using the handrail. And the following weekend, they went to a school fair with their grandchildren and they did something called the Candy Dance. Now, Candy is a song by Cameo. Do, do, do. And it's sort of hop, skip, jump, turn, da, 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 da. They even sent me the video and they said, Marilyn, I did the Candy Dance not once, but twice. And the second time was what we call the fast jungle version. Jungle is a genre of music that's really fast and really pacey. So that was amazing because they were down to have a walker and a hip operation. I'm going to say at this point, I'm not making any healing claims. I'm not making any medical claims. I'm not making any financial claims. I am just telling you what happened to the people that took part. That's all. Not going to say this is what will happen for you, etc. There was someone else who wasn't about physical for them. It was about grief, hurt, loss of business during COVID. And they said they felt they'd been spiritually cut off, almost like in the wilderness. And by the end of it, again, they wrote a really long essay that's on the blog. But in a nutshell, they said they're connected, they feel uncapped, they're unblocked, they're channeling again. They were struggling to write a book. The book is flowing. And they basically said, I'm back, which is absolutely fantastic. And then someone else was working on muscle stiffness and eyesight. And they said they felt their muscles releasing. They also felt more fluidity in their social life because they don't like small talk. They do not like networking. And they had 2 days of back-to-back events on day 6 and day 7 of the experiment. And they said they were talking, networking, everything was just much more fluid. So that in a nutshell is what happened, which, look, when I do something, I expect it to be good. I expect it to work. But even I was like, what on earth is this? It was just amazing. And one of the reasons I was so excited about this sort of proposition, for me, it's always been about rapid transformation, but not rapid for the sake of it, rapid in a way that works and is long lasting. And my logo since the year 2001 has been a water drop, because my work was like the catalyst, and then the changes will ripple throughout people's lives. And clients just find that they worked with me for one day doing a breakthrough session, and the changes are still rippling throughout their entire life 10 years later. So it's always been about that for me. But this was even more like, whoa, because it's remote, it's hands off, it's non-invasive. People had stuff with the physical body. There were people with energetic blocks. There were people with emotional issues. We then brought in the radionics, where we did the next level manifestation stuff. And it can be done globally. I know where some of the clients are based. Others, I've got no idea where they live. Some of them are abroad. Didn't make any difference. So it was a really exciting proposition for me. So what we did in a nutshell, we did remote sessions using scalar energy. I'm going to show you what the generators look like. We did the Rife frequency generators for specific issues. Like when somebody said osteoporosis, for example, I went in and I found the frequencies for osteoporosis, bone, hip, joints, etc. We did something that I call name imprinting, because not everyone sent over a DNA sample in terms of their nails. And then part two, for people who wanted to kind of do part two, we did something called radionics imprinting, and I used something called holographic stickers, and I imprinted some crystal pendants. So imprinting energy into a crystal that you can then wear or carry, etc. And then we did, and we're going to do it, that's coming up this soon, the radionics manifestation protocol. There's a lot. I could just talk about one of the generators for all day, and we're pushing them into about 45, 50 minutes. So I hope you're sitting comfortably. Now, very quickly, the phenomenon of quantum entanglement. The idea of that is where you've got two particles, which, you separate them out and they are entangled. There's an energetic connection. In Huna, we call it the ARCA, aka the ARCA connection. So they're separated, but if you vibrate this one here, this one that's separated would also vibrate. And they could be separated not just a couple of inches, thousands of miles. And there are people at CERN looking at how far can you go with this in terms of the galaxy. Now, this was an idea that was observed by Albert Einstein, but he didn't actually really delve into it because, a bit like gravitational waves, he couldn't prove that it was possible. He could see what was happening. So he called it spooky action at a distance, in terms of there was something a little bit woo-woo about it, but he couldn't explain it scientifically. And so kind of postulated, well, maybe, well, is it really real? I'm not sure. So it took a while, a bit like the gravitational waves theory. He had the idea about gravitational waves in the universe. He didn't really talk about it because he couldn't prove it. And almost 100 years to the day, it was proven. It took 100 years. And when the pictures came out of the gravitational waves, that's my business card in the corner, I was like, oh my God, it looks just like my business card. Seriously, if you type gravitational waves into Facebook, you'll probably find pictures of it that come up, because Mark Zuckerberg posted about it and I did a post about it, where I'm sure other people did too. But Einstein called the quantum entanglement, that phenomenon, he called it spooky action at a distance. We're also working with scalar energy. Now, Nikola Tesla, some of you may have seen the image. This is from Wikipedia. He called it radiant energy, and he felt that it was primal force energy in the universe. So standing energy, universal waves, which can be transmitted without loss. And that's when I was like, ooh, transmitted without loss. That again reminds me of Huna, because I can have a client in Australia. I'll do the Huna. I've had people email me and go, Marilyn, did you do Huna today by any chance? I go, why are you asking? And they said, because I felt it. And they felt it when I was doing it. They had no idea I was doing it. Because, if I'm coaching someone, I've got permission. If they come into my head, I'm like, oh, I think they might need a little boost today, a little bit of an energy vibe. People feel it. And so this thing about being transmitted without loss, and I think this is one of the things, had he been able to get the funding, because Tesla was talking about free energy. Oh my God, can you imagine free energy? and being able to transmit this across the world, around the world, drawing on all that scalar energy that is around us. And so Nikola Tesla was a proponent of the idea of the scalar energy. And then we have Royal Raymond Rife. So when I talk about Rife frequencies, they are based on the work of Rife. So he was an inventor, magnification, time-lapse photography. So he, with his magnification techniques that he developed in the I think this picture was taken in the 1930s, he was able to see microorganisms, and he could then see what happened with particular frequencies. Now, he was working with the C word. I'm not going to say it on this recording. We know how that goes, but I'm sure you can use your imagination. And he was finding that he could do interesting things to remove and destroy those microorganisms. And he used a system that he called radiant frequency energy emissions. So the frequencies that I'm using with the clients are based on the work of Royal Raymond Rife. So that's our whistle stop tour through the background underpinning of the technology. So I've introduced you to our three main proponents. For those of you I haven't met before, my name is Marilyn Devonish. I had a very traditional background, did a business degree, postgraduate marketing diploma, was studying to be a chartered accountant, but was very quiet, very shy, terrified of public speaking. I came into personal development at a time where I just had my heart broken. My then partner had had an affair. I contemplated suicide, not just because of that, but that was like the tipping point moment. That was in September 2000. Just so happened I had signed myself up in that summer for a personal development course, which started in the October, which I desperately tried to get out of doing. So I only went along because they wouldn't give me a refund. So I'm like, you are not keeping that money, because it was about £4,000. I'm like, I'm coming to the workshop to get my money back. And that's how it started. The rest, as they say, is history. I was absolutely transformed in that very short space of time. So I went on to be a practitioner, a master practitioner and trainer in NLP and hypnosis and timeline therapy. I first learned about HUNA. This was all in October 2000. So went over to HUNA several times to study because it just blew my mind. And I'm trained in a number of different modalities: EFT, DNA theta healing, HUNA, past life regression, future life progression, of course, tarot, access consciousness, energetic NLP Reiki. I'm a soul plan reader and a soul plan certification trainer, so training other people to be soul plan readers, archetypal profiling. And I also do a fair bit of corporate work as well. So I've been doing that since 2003, when I became a management consultant and Prince 2 project manager. So anything that comes under the banner of leadership development training. If you've ever been at work, well, you haven't probably done a leadership development training like mine, because people often think they're going to be boring. They're like, I was really dreading this. It was amazing. But, the usual stuff: emotional intelligence, stakeholder management, presentation skills, project management, you name it, probably done it over the last 21 years. And before anybody goes, well, it's all right for you, Marilyn, let me remind you: shy, lacking in confidence, low self-esteem, self-sabotaging left, right, and center, sometimes knowingly, a lot of the time not, suicidal. I felt I was living my life on the outside looking in so I could see everyone else enjoying themselves. I was diagnosed with what was thought to be early onset Alzheimer's in my 20s. Thank God. When I was in my 30s, I discovered the photo reading accelerated learning. I'm a photo reading instructor. And I was physically drained, like sleeping 12 to 15 hours a day. And that was my personality right up until the age of 32. So I always say to people, I did not do a Lady Gaga. I wasn't born this way. I was the quiet. I'm off the chart introvert in terms of MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And that's why I'm so passionate about personal development. It's a bit like Bunmi was saying, in terms of having those crucible moments, those pivotal moments. I'm a lifelong fan, and I'd probably be knocking on the top of my coffin going, just one more quote for you. So, the experiment. This is what we did. These are the practicalities. First thing I'm going to say, and this is one of the sayings from HUNA, I use it all the time, even on corporate workshops. So I might be doing a project management workshop. You're probably still going to see this slide. It says, think not that all wisdom is in your school. And I learned this when I first went out to Hawaii in 2005. And what that means is I might think, you might think, we might think that it's the best thing ever, the best thing since sliced bread. It's not the be all and end all. There's probably going to be other ways that you could do it. So it's like, do not get too carried away with oneself. And I already know from the experiment that I did, that's why I called it an experiment. I already knew I was breaking the rules and I was not doing it the way that people who've been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years were doing it. So what I'm saying is how I did it. It's not the be all and end all, and it's not how everyone else is doing it. So what I did, it was 7 days. Everyone had so each person had a week. So it took 6 weeks to work through everyone. We used the energies, the frequencies, the generators. I also did a survey, and this was open not just to people who took part, but I just sent it out to my e-newsletter list. And what was astounding to me was the results in red. 75% of people said they want to focus on their physical health. There was a smaller proportion, 12.5%, who wanted to look at both physical and emotional. 76% of people said the thing that they were going through, dealing with, was having a negative impact on their life. And I'm like, oh my God, just imagine that. It's just, and for some people, it's always there. It's a constant thing. Like when you're in pain, for example, every time you get up, you sit down, you walk up the stairs, you reach for something. That's a lot. So I thought, no, I'm definitely doing the experiment. So everyone had day one, 12 hours in the pure, what you call pure scalar energy field. Day two, we had a break. I didn't tell people why we were having a break, but I suspected I was going to see some stuff with sleep. And 5 of the 6 people came back on that first day and talked about sleep. I'm like, yes, that's what I guessed. And it also said we're on the right track. Day three was back in the scalar energy field for 12 hours. Day four, we did the HUNA energy clearing. Day five, that's where we got into the molecular scalar if people sent a nail clipping. So half the group did, half the group didn't. And we also I did some other things with people who didn't. We were back in the scalar energies field for day six. And then day seven, we did the harmonic frequency. And I'm going to show you what that all looks like. So everyone was working on something completely different. So this is on the before, that's what it said in the email. And the after is what we've just talked about. And on the day seven, which was the Sunday, I didn't tell people I was going to send it, but I sent them a bonus HUNA recording specifically for them. And this particular person said they just had tears of joy and calm as they were just listening to the process. So it was really just fantastic to think 7 days, they didn't do it. All they did was send me the email and then they just got on with what they were doing. I just thought it was pretty amazing, which is why then I was talking about it on social media. And I think that's where Anne saw it. And this one was the grief and loss. So this is what they sent me, the first bullet point. They said suffering and grieving and the loss of business and connection during COVID. I put insomnia in brackets because I didn't know anything about the insomnia. Turns out they've had insomnia for 3 years. And the remote experiment was the first time in 3 years they had a good night's sleep. That's major. Well, it is in my book. So that in a nutshell, they said, okay, where to start? Massive realization on day two. They've been spiritually capped or sort of cut off. They got the message on day three of the experiment, which was a Wednesday. They've been uncapped. They said they started changing direction for their business. They were the one writing the book. They said there were small signals, things popping up of people wanting to work with them again. They said they have access to their higher guidance once more. They said, I know who I am. I can channel again. I'm back. And I listened to the HUNA recording on the Sunday night and I've slept through every night since. 3 years of insomnia I can't even begin to imagine how disruptive that is. And again, they just sent me a one-liner in an email. So, as I said, I already knew about the remote stuff because this is from someone who we didn't even work. It wasn't like we weren't one-to-one. I did a webinar or a teleseminar back in those days. It was an audio recording. Pippa lives in Australia. She wasn't there live because of the time zone. So she sent this wonderful breakdown in terms of the third eye and the heart center and what she was feeling. It wasn't until years later when I was using this as an example, because people said, oh, can't make it live, but it's still working the recording. And I was reading what Pippa said, and I was like, hold on a minute. What Pippa is saying is exactly the order and sequence in which I did the HUNA, but nobody knew what I was doing except me. and she described a red triangle of fire. I used a red triangle of fire. She talked about the light. I used an energy, the wave of light that makes you gasp. She talks about drawing it out. I was doing a sort, seriously, this was all audio. So I already knew about that. And some of you who speak at events, you've probably also had that experience. So that little pink dot on the stage is me. I was speaking for Psychology's magazine. Um, and somebody sent me an email saying they were sitting right at the back, but they felt like I was talking directly to them because that's how I set the space up. Number one, I did a bit of Huna before everyone arrived, but you've probably had that yourself. And that also happens online because I've been getting that since I started doing online training and online coaching and online therapy in 2005. So we're all aware of this. And I'm guessing that pretty much everyone here has had some instance of that. And so all what we're doing here is we're ramping it up with technology. There are also a number of studies that have been done using this equipment. And this was the after slide, because I put this up as the before slide when I was giving those taking part an idea of what to expect. And so this was in September 2024. We did the experiments in the summer. So we finished beginning of August. So when I did the webinar, I did a summary. What's in red are the things that people had already experienced from taking part. So increased cell energy, boosting their energy levels, enhancing body circulation, reductions in pain and inflammation, stimulating the natural immune function, speeding up their natural healing, improving the sleep quality, clearing the mind, enhancing their focus and concentration. And so that was just after each person having a week remotely. Oh, Jess, full disclosure, the link on that you can see on the screen, the Spooky 2, that's what the company is called, as in spooky at a distance, spooky2-mail.com/ref811. That's my partner code. And I always say to people, look, if you're going to get some of the kit, use my code. I don't get any money, but they put credits in my account. So some of the kit that I use for part 2 of the experiment, I use the credits because people bought some of the kit using my link. Yay. So it just means I can now double up rather than having to make everyone wait in line. I got another generator, a couple of more remotes. So yeah, if you're ever interested, come back, pull up this presentation, use that link. So I've been talking about the tech. Here's what it looks like. That was the one for personal use, the first one that I got. This will be coming up to what, 2.5 years ago now. The black boxes, when I say this pure scalar energy, those two black boxes, you have them across the room from each other with the backs of the covers facing each other, and whatever is in that field is in the scalar energy field. So that's how I did the name imprinting. You've got the thing that looks like the Star Trek Enterprise. That's the harmonic frequency generator. So that goes onto the scalar box. And whatever frequencies, like the healing frequencies, solfeggio frequencies, Hertz frequencies, what happens is those frequencies get infused into the scalar energy field. And then we've got what we call the Rife generator. So all of the frequencies that Royal Rife started working on and people have added to over the years, that little silver box with the buttons on it, that's how you run the frequencies. And then what's connected to it is called the remote. This isn't the remote, but it's similar. So when those who said nail clippings, it went inside, the nail clippings went inside of the remote, and then that remote connects to the generator. I cannot pick the generator up because it's run. We're doing an 11-day detox at the moment. So the generator's running. If I pick it up, it will interrupt the frequencies. But that's the technologies. That's the basic stuff that we used. When I say I'm building programs, this is what it looks like. I can type anything into the database. There are over 60,000 frequencies. And so we have to be very specific. So when somebody said hip pain, osteoporosis, I went and I started searching through hips, joints, muscles, everything. This one, there's no images in the database. That's just for illustration. But the person who said stiffness, I started looking for, muscle stiffness, stiff neck, and I would then get macula, and I would then started searching for things to do with the body, things to do with the eyes. So I then sit and build the frequency program, and that's how you run it. And this is what it looks like when it's running. So this one was for the person with osteoporosis. So some of the things that I'd put into the program: cartilage, knee joint pain, osteoarthritis. There are different versions of that. And then basically, so that one, that was running for 234 hours because I just left it to run. for about 10 days. So that's what the technology looks like. There's a shed load of stuff. There are blogs, product overviews, frequency downloads, videos. You can actually download the software database. It only runs on Windows, but you can go to that site or, hold your phone up at the QR code and you can download the frequency database that I've just shown you. Now, if you haven't got the generator kit, you can't do anything with it, but it's still very interesting to see the frequencies and all of the descriptions. So you can I warn you, the site is humongous. There is a ton of information. So with all of that said, in terms of that's the backstory to what I was doing, how I did it, the kit that I used to do it, I thought it might be fun, first of all, to connect in with the wonderful positive aspects of Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla. And thinking about what would you like to ask Albert Einstein or Nikola Tesla about, maybe about your future, or possibly about the evolving potential future of the planet. So just start to have a little think about that. And you might just do it intuitively when we do the process, but we're going to do a guided process. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to do before we do it. We're going to start with, now I'm going to start with a couple of hard breaths. You can just start with 3 breaths. So the hard breath is in through the nose and out through the mouth. So I do 3 of those. Then what you're going to do is you're going to imagine that you're in a place of space that you find relaxing, beautiful, relaxing, supportive, just the most wonderful space. And you might have your go-to space, or it might be something that comes to mind in the moment. Then what you're going to do, and we're going to use one of one of the first FLP processes I learned from Anne, but it's one of my favorites, is the crystal tower. So you're going to imagine there's this crystal tower. Suddenly you're right there, you're in it, and there's 2 escalators, one going up, one coming down. So you're going to go on the up escalator. Now, oftentimes when I do this, there are a series of doors for people to choose from. This time, and for the sake of time, there's going to be one door. But you can decide when you walk through that door, are you going to meet with Einstein? Are you going to meet with Tesla? Or are you going to meet with both of them? So you might consciously decide, or you might open the door, step inside and see who shows up. And then you're going to pose your question. Now, I would say just one question. Yeah, you might have, if you're like me, you've got 20,000 things you might want to ask, but go with one question just so you can really focus on that in the moment. And then, of course, you can come back and re-watch this recording and take yourself through that process again. And also notice the senses. So you might think in terms of when you arrive at that point where you're speaking to them, particularly if you're asking about the future, it might be that you get a sense of what does the future look like? Or what does the future sound like? What does it feel like? What's that inner knowing? So just kind of notice what you notice in terms of what comes to mind with this particular process. So we're going to do that. You're going to ask your question. We'll leave some silence there for you to intuit, feel, think, etc. Bring that question and the answers or the insights that you get. Now, for some of you, when I first started doing this stuff, I'd close my eyes to do a meditation. And I had a very good friend. She's still a very good friend, Gina. She was a psychic and a clairvoyant. She is a psychic and a clairvoyant. And her eyelashes would be fluttering. And she'd be like, oh my God, I saw a cherub and I smelt, lavender and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I close my eyes. I'm like, duh, it's just dark. And also when I was going into psychic development, they're saying, your guides are speaking to you. I'm like, well, if they're speaking, they need to speak up because I cannot hear anything. So when I started out, there wasn't that much going on consciously. It was coming in other ways. I just wasn't aware of it. So whether you get something now in the moment, you heard this earlier with Jojo, etc., or it might be something that comes to you in the next few hours, days, even weeks or months. You might be finding yourself doing something and bang, something pops up and you're like, oh my gosh. So just be open and notice what you notice. Now, if you haven't had any water in the last 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to seriously suggest you have some water because it's a good idea to be hydrated. Good. I can see people on camera or having a good old sip. Excellente. Always good to be hydrated before you start a process. Actually, let me turn my volume down for now. Remind me to turn it up when I'm speaking to Anne, because I should be like, can't hear ya. But just so we don't have any extra bings and bongs. So, 3 lovely deep breaths at your own pace. And then you can just return to your regular breathing, breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the nose, and breathing at a rate and pace that is comfortable for you. And you might also even imagine there's a wonderful wave of relaxation that starts at the top of your head and is cascading all the way down to the bottom of your feet, like a healing, cleansing waterfall, where you can already start releasing, resolving, letting go of anything and everything that no longer serves you, where you've got what you need to know or learn or pay attention to, so you can just let it go now. And any old blockages, just freeing up your energy field. And then in your mind's eye, you are going to transport yourself to a relaxing place, space, or scene. And it's a place where you feel safe and secure, loved, protected, surrounded by all good things. And it's a beautiful place or space, whether you see it, hear it, feel it, or none of the above. And then ahead of you, you notice a crystal tower. And as soon as it comes into your awareness, you are there. You're inside of the beautiful crystal tower with wonderful prisons of light as the sun, the energy comes in. And you see an escalator that goes up to a platform with a door. So you step onto the escalator and a guide automatically appears behind you. And that's also your support and also to guide you back into the present time once you're complete. So as you arrive on the platform, you either open the door or the door automatically opens for you now and you step through. And this is the place in the space where you can either connect with the energy and all of those wonderful positive aspects of Albert Einstein, or you can connect with the energy and the zeitgeist of Nikola Tesla, or you can energetically speak to both of them. And you might either ask them about your future or the unfolding and evolving future of the planet. So just take a few moments now to connecting with the energy of whoever shows up for you and pose your question. And then be open to receiving the answer, however it comes. You might hear the answer spoken to you. You might feel the answer intuitively. You might see a picture or an image. It might be a particular feeling, an inner knowing. So just allow the answer or the answers to come in a way that's right and healthy and ecological for you. And notice what you notice now. And also, if whoever you're speaking to, be it Einstein, Tesla, or both of them, if they were to give you a gift, a gift, to bring back into the present, what would that gift be? And invite them to hand it over to you now. And then you can thank them for coming. This has just been a brief conversation, but you're knowing and trusting that if and when you want to return safely to this place and this space, you can do so whenever you choose. So thanking them, whichever or both of them that showed up for you, and they can continue back on their path and their journey, doing whatever they were doing. And you can leave that space, walk out of the door. The door gently closes behind you for now. And you now step on the down escalator where your guide is also there to meet you, bringing that gift and the insights, the wisdom, the knowledge with you. And as you get to the bottom of the down escalator, those moving stairs, you're automatically back in the here and now, the present. And just for a moment, put your attention, your focus on the breathing and notice the in breath, notice the out breath. You might notice whatever you're sitting on, lying on, how it's supporting you. And then take a deep breath in and exhale. And if you've had your eyes closed, you can gently open your eyes. And if you're sitting, you might want to stamp your feet on the floor just to bring you back into the here and now. If you're lying down, you might want to pat up and down the arms or pat the chest just to kind of reorientate yourself. And just take a moment and very quickly, how was that for you? And just write down a key insight, a thought, or a gift that you received. So about 30 seconds, just write down whatever it is that came to you or that you noticed. And although I was talking, I was still sort of kind of doing it in my head, and I saw an image that I didn't expect. Tesla and Einstein were holding, they held hands in a, collaborative, it was almost like a hand-holding handshake. And Einstein said, and they both sort of said, but Einstein said it, but I could feel it from Tesla. The word was collaboration. And then Einstein said, oh, I get goosebumps, how much further the world and science would have come had we collaborated. And he was also talking about, well, in my version of this, he was also talking about Carl Jung, because he and Jung spoke about synchronicity over tea. But because they couldn't prove it, Jung finally pursued the idea, and that's one of the things he's now known for. But Albert Einstein did not, because they couldn't figure out how it worked. And so Einstein was sort of lamenting about how much further we could have come if we could have come together and collaborated on these types of ideas. But coming back to the things we've been hearing today, particularly when we did the 150 years, all of that sort of stuff, no time like the present, and everybody in some way, shape, or form has alluded to that. And if there's anything you want to share in the chat, well, I'll cycle back and look at it later, but feel free to put that in the chat. And what I want to close with is just talking a bit about the FLP Summit radionics experiment. So I'm going to be starting up something with a particular group that I'm working with it is actually called the Manifestation Protocol. The device is built and they have a manifestation protocol frequency program. So we're going to do a version of that. Now, when I use this with somebody, they didn't know I was running it because I didn't tell anyone what I was doing because I didn't want to bias or influence the experiment in any way. So I didn't mention sleep. I said nothing. But when I was doing a debrief after we'd run the experiment, somebody who took part, she said, because she had a long list of things, but she said, third, I had no idea you use any kind of abundance energy in your experiment. So when I heard this in the workshop, I immediately thought of 2.5 years of back pay I received a couple of weeks ago. Who gets 2.5 years back pay out of the blue
Wow.
for some work she did but never charged for? And then she said, on top of this, last week, someone paid for my flight to the USA as a thank you for something I did for them a year ago. And she'd just come back from that trip in America. And she said all of the above was a mind-blowing in a really good way. So it's kind of interesting. And there was someone else who I'll talk about the pendants in a minute, but this is what I used to do the radionics because this is a radionics device. That one I can pick up because it's not plugged in at the moment. I'll plug it in once we do this experiment. So that's what it looks like. That's the radionics device. It's got the input plate and the output plate, and these dials don't do anything on their own. You actually have to douse to set the dials. So depending on what we're working on, I then have to douse, as in, I'm saying, is it frequency one? That's my signal for no. Is it frequency two? Is it frequency number three? Is it number four? And I have to go through that for each of the three dials. But what I did with one of the groups, collectively, I said, okay, pick one, maybe two words. And then we're going to see what theme emerges. And we're going to do an experiment where that word goes onto the radionics plate and we use that process to transfer the energy of that into the group of people that are taking part. So in this example, for example, I could be putting the energy of self-love into that crystal and then I could send the crystal to someone and they would experience those frequencies. So when the radionics arrived, took it out of the box. About 10 minutes later, I'm straight in doing the first experiment. And I did an experiment with this actual bottle of oregano oil and this particular glass of water. And what I did is I put them on the respective plate. So I created some structured magnetic water. I put it on the plate. The lid stayed on the oregano and I left it there for 20 minutes. I was sat here because it's right there next to me because that's where the generator is. And then I took it off and I drank some water. So I was like, okay, let's see. After about 2, 3 seconds, I could taste the oregano, and then my lips started tingling. And I was like, what freaky magic is this? Because the lid stayed on the bottle and they were just sitting opposite ends of the plate. And again, I expected it to work, but I kind of didn't think it would work. It's just a weird juxtaposition. But I was like, oh my God, that was insane. So, what we're going to do with this one, what I did with the people who took part, I used some holographic stickers. Got a few of them here. So this is what they look like. So I used some holographic stickers and I used some wonderful pendants from a lovely client and friend of mine called Naomi Tamayama. So I charged these up with particular frequencies and energies, in this case, the manifestation. And then I also charged up the holographic stickers, and the stickers, you can place them on the body. And I'd suggested people maybe, because I sent them 2 stickers, maybe you put one under your glass of water, for example, if we think about the work of Masaru Emoto, Messages from Water, and we had some fun with that. And what was interesting, I sent my client the holographic stickers and their pendant, and they didn't know what they looked like. I kept it all secret, so it was a nice surprise. And they sent me a message back saying I made my first sale. They had made 0 sales in 6 months. They made their first sale in 6 months within 48 hours of receiving the imprinted pendant and the holographic stickers. Could be coincidence. I'm not a big believer in coincidence. I'm a massive believer in synchronicity. So all I'm going to say is That's very interesting. And so everyone received a little box in the post that looked a little bit like this. And then inside of the box, I placed their pendant, and I bought pendants so that people could either wear it or it was small enough for them to carry it around. I hoonered everything as well. I sent it out by post and then gave people some suggestions about how they could use it. So that's what they got in the post. So what I thought we might do is a version of that. So while I'm talking, just be thinking about, because in about 2 minutes, I'm going to come back and go, what's the word? And I'm going to ask you to put some of those words into the chat. And then while Jake is on, I'm going to be listening. But what I'm going to do is I'll just do a cut and paste of those words. And later on, I'm going to sit and see if there's a theme that emerges. And if we can, or if there might be people use the same words, and that's going to be the one that we choose. And we're going to do a little radionics experiment with the names. So if you've called yourself Fifi Trixable in Zoom, that's what I'll use. But I'm going to write all the names down. They're going to go onto the radionics plate, and we're going to run the frequencies of the word that we chose. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. And when I was looking at just this way of working, as Bunmi was saying about the future, healing, frequencies, no travel costs, no accommodation, no time, no effort. People just sent me an email. So it's truly effortless and it really transcends space and time. And the client with the osteoporosis, she sent me the letter from her consultant. I've blocked out his name, but I've put the letter on my social media page as well. It's like, how can that be after 2, 3 days? That's kind of insane. Now, Anne had said, Anjush, wonderful Anjush, said, you can make people an offer if they want to take something further. So yesterday I sat and I built a whole web page. So I put together a little offer if you want to dip your toe in the water as well. And there are a couple of things you should do. So it's special pricing just for that, because once the recording's out, there'll be different people watching this. But this is for those of you who are here live. So I'll leave it up for this weekend. And if you want to do something, hopefully I've priced it in a way that everybody can at least dip their toe in the water. So special prices that you wouldn't normally see. And I've also created a coupon code, which is FLP10. So that's marylindevish.thrivecart.com/FLP-summit-services. I can drop a link in the chat later, and it's got the coupon code built in. So whichever you choose, it will take 10% off of that. So you can get started for £42 if you want to do the thing with the imprinted crystal and holographic sticker. I will do, because I've only got one radionics device, so I will do them in the order that they come in terms of charging those up and getting those out in the post. And there's also an option which I've not yet offered, which you can either do a 1 hour coaching session or the big guns, the breakthrough session, which I used to run just as 1 day sessions. Now I break the time down a little bit, but you can do the 1 day session. But what we'll do as with that, whatever you're working on, we'll also run the frequencies through the generator to help remotely with that and do it on a cellular level. So those are the next steps. That's the link for the blog. My main website is transformationstm.com. There's a red watch new button because the site is humongous as well. It's been there since the year 2001. So it's more of like a signboard where it's like if you want some background information, there it is. But Watch New is where I add the things that are coming up. But those are the links. Have a read of the blog because it takes you through it all. Put your collective word or energy into the chat, and then before this comes to a close, I will then pull those off. And if you haven't thought of your word before this webinar closes, you can ping me an email. This is only for people who are here live. Ping me an email, Marilyn, Marilyn, at transformationstm.com. That's TRANCE, as in hypnotic trance, FORMATIONS, as in trademark. So Marilyn at transformationstm.com. So in the next 48 hours, if you want to send your word over, and then I'll set the radionics play up on Monday and get the energy of that flowing. And it's a couple of things in terms of encouraging more synchronicity and that pathway to self-empowerment where the world and the universe starts aligning with you. Just a few things. expect great results, and be okay with whatever happens or not. Enjoy the process rather than, are we nearly there yet? Are we nearly there yet? Are we nearly there yet? Pay attention to your intuitive guidance, so those little hits and nudges, etc. Remember that not everything is happening above the surface. You know, like if you plant a seed, the weeds, the things are happening beneath the surface that you can't actually see. It may be an unfolding. The first thing you think might happen might not be the thing that happens, because a person who's thinking about osteoporosis is not thinking about deeper sleep, for example, but that unfolded then into other things. I've been saying this to my breakthrough coaching clients since the year 2000. Notice what you notice. And also, this is a big one, celebrate all successes, no matter how small you might deem them to be, because those little small steps, that's where you can start the ripple effect. So keep in touch. I'm at Marilyn Devonish or forward Marilyn Devonish on socials, except for Instagram. It's the Neuro Success Coach. I'm on all the socials except LinkedIn, who booted me off and closed my account a couple of months ago. I have no idea why. I am yet to find out, but you'll find me everywhere else. You just won't find me on LinkedIn anymore. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for the invitation, Anne. Always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. I can see the chat moving, so I'm guessing there's some wonderful words in there. And I'm just going to close. Anne, have I got another 30 seconds? Cool. I'm just going to very quickly close with a round of Huna, which you probably won't be able to hear, but energetically it can travel. So we're just going to close with that, and then I will hand over. So here we go. And with your permission, if you don't want to receive it, you can just have the instruction, it just passes you by. And if you would like to receive it, then you can just let it work its magic and do what it wants to do. All right, there we go. There we go. Questions, put them in the chat. Huna is old, dates back 35,000 years. The weird thing I'm doing with my hands, there's a load of symbols that you can use. It's profound, even when there are hundreds of people receiving the same energy. They all have something different. That's me with Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton. So it's cool stuff. Notice what you notice. Again, the ripple effect can happen with that one also. So there you have it, Anne. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very much appreciated. Always a pleasure. Oh, hold on. Anne, I think you're muted. You're still muted. There you
That was,
go.
thank you so much. That was magnificent, really magnificent. And I'll write out, I think I'm directing people to the Future Vision Training Facebook page because it'd be nice to add a lot on there. Um, and I will send you over my thingy because I was trying to talk to Tesla and Einstein stood there and I thought, oh, see what I thought I was supposed to do, I wasn't. And it was really, really amazing. And then Tesla popped in anyway, but it was really, really cool. So I'm just going to write that out properly. But that was just terrific. Yeah, really, really terrific. So you've got lots of words popping up, and yeah, Louise got both too. Yeah, there you go. That's good. Yeah, this is so, so good. And I'm so glad this is all recorded. We can listen again. So